Hey there guys, and welcome to this review of Battlefield 1. Now, this review is going to be a mixture between soft speaking and whispering, because I'm in one of those moods. I want to mix it up a little bit. You know, do the soft-spoken here, maybe a little soft-spoken there. It gets softer and softer at times. So, Battlefield 1 has been out for a while now, and I was going to do a review sooner, but the hype was still there, and I don't think games should be reviewed while you're still hyping about them, because your judgment can be clouded. You could be waiting for the game a long time. It's finally released, and your instant reaction will be, it is amazing, especially if the game is good on release and not bad. Now I want to explain just quickly. I am going to be getting fairly low, because the microphones are doing a weird thing. They're not sitting even. They're wonky. So this side is higher than this side, and it's doing my head. And I like it to be fairly even, so I've put them out of shot a little bit. But anyway, back to this. So for me, there was a lot of hype. And the game came out, and it was really good. Of course, with it being EA and the new Battlefield game, the servers didn't work when I first played it, which was a little bit of a pain. That was the first problem I really ran into, but it was to be expected because it always happens, with EA games especially. But after that problem had been fixed, I could get into the games and play games, play rounds, test out the different game modes, play the different maps, test out the different weapons, and get a good judgment of what this game is all about. Now, I want to say that these are my opinions, and I'm only saying that because some people can't really handle opinions on their own, as we all know. But anyway, yes, this is solely my opinion. Okay? Now, I'll start with the bad points because I want to end on good notes. The campaign. I will start with the campaign, but I won't spoil anything, so don't worry, this won't contain any spoilers. I've played through the campaign in its entirety. I've played all of the stories for the campaign, and I must say, they're really good. I really enjoyed the campaign. It had a nice mixture of different things that are going on and gave the game a nice base, by introducing stealthy elements, and introducing tanks and planes and more outright combat portions. So it had a really nice blend of different things you can do in the campaign, and I thought that was good. It was great, but it's extremely short, which is a problem. Now, we look at a lot of first-person shooters to have a campaign length of about 6 hours. 6 to 7 hours has sort of become the norm. So I was looking to get a fairly decent play out of the campaign, but it didn't feel that way at all. The campaign felt extremely short, by extremely short it felt. It might have been longer, it might have been less, but from my perspective, from when I played it, it only felt as though it was about 4 hours long. And that's a problem because the game is expensive, and it's given more evidence as to the fact that game developers are leaning towards multiplayer, which is really sad because Battlefield 1 could have had an amazing single player mode. It could have been fantastic. They could have made it twice as long as your standard first person shooter campaigns, because there's so much going on. Instead they opted for mini stories. But again, having said that, the campaign was good. It was just extremely short. Now, I'll move on to the multiplayer because there isn't a lot to say about single player. In terms of bad points, it's a good single player, it's just very short. Although I will say, playing it on the Xbox One, I ran into a lot of frame rate issues. I like to think that the game is too pretty, too nice looking for the console, and it can't really handle it. I think on the Pro consoles, the Scorpio and the PlayStation 4 Pro, I think it will play fantastically, unless it is just the cutscenes and the horrible frame rate issues are built into the cutscenes, in which case that's a really bad design. But moving on to the multiplayer section. Now, with Battlefield games, you always expect a fantastic multiplayer section. Multiplayer game modes such as Conquest and Rush are extremely popular, mainly because of the size of the maps and the fact that there is a lot going on, and it's awesome. But it has its problems. Battlefield 1 has a couple of biggies for me. The previous Battlefield games have been filled to the brim with content from release. There have been plenty of guns in the classes: Recon, Support, Engineer, Assault. There have been loads and loads of different guns in previous Battlefield games in classes. Now, I am aware of the fact that the World War One setting didn't have the vast majority of guns that we have today, but that doesn't mean you can't try and beef up the weapon choice. And they have tried to do that, but they've gone about it wrong, in my opinion. So we'll take Recon, which is a sniper class. I can't remember if it's called Recon in Battlefield 1. So the sniper class, there are on release four different snipers, I believe. But then they're beefed out by having variants of those guns. So we use 4 as a base number. So 4 guns in a class, and then 4 variants of each gun. that would beef out the list quite well, quite nicely. If the specs were different for each gun, which they're not enough to justify having full variants. So we'll say the SMLE, I think it was the SMLE 3, we'll say that for instance, I can't remember the guns exactly. So we'll make these up. So the SMLE 3 Assault, and we'll go with Infantry. Probably not called those, but we'll go with those for instance. They're too similar, far too similar to justify having to switch backwards and forwards. The bullet velocity is different, giving you a slightly better range on different guns. But in terms of main specs, you want to see some variety in there. Better stopping powers, better accuracy ranges, things like that, things that really make you think about the gun you're picking instead of thinking, right, whatever, it doesn't matter what gun I pick, what variant I pick, it's all the same gun. And that's how I felt in all the classes. All the guns were very similar to begin with, but then the variants didn't really add any variety. So that was a bit of a letdown once I got over the hype train and realised that there wasn't a great deal going on. The game modes are great, but it is missing hardcore. They are releasing hardcore, which I'm happy about because I only really like playing hardcore modes, because as a sniper I don't like being shown up as a blip on the map or anything like that. I like to be hidden, tucked away behind a rock and left alone to take my pot shots. So it was a bit disappointing to not see hardcore on release, but as soon as that's released it will be fine. It will be almost full game, so to speak. They have slightly changed what we would call capture the flag for a game mode about a pigeon. I really don't like the pigeon game mode. It doesn't really seem well too thought out. It's tried to change capture the flag and incorporates World War I messenger pigeons. Now, for me, that should have been a game mode on its own. Bring capture the flag back and keep pigeon if you want. I don't care. I don't play it. I don't like it. Capture the flag is like one of those game modes in a shooter that doesn't need changing at all. It's been around for years, and it just works. So it doesn't need changing for a pigeon. I can see how people enjoy the pigeon mode. I don't enjoy them. Now, the good points of Battlefield 1, of which there are many. Okay? There are many. I don't just hate Battlefield 1. I do enjoy the game. I haven't played it for a little bit, only because I don't want the game to get stale. So I've taken a break from playing it for a little bit, but that's helped me clear my head for this review and let me see things properly. So, of course, Conquest was brought back, which means really big maps, lots of things going on, and a huge 64 player battles. And I, for one, love Conquest, so I'm glad that's been brought back. And with the maps that have been released, it makes it feel like proper battles are going on. As a sniper, I like long distance things, so I do like large open spaces, and there's lots of that. There are plenty of maps to allow that, and at the same time there are a lot of maps that allow precision, sort of hide in a building, look down an alleyway, camp style sniping. Now, there's no such thing as camping if you're a sniper. There is, though, if you're using a shotgun. Opinion again. So, I'm glad that the game modes have stayed the same. That's a really good point besides the pigeon. Now, the graphics. Of course, the graphics in the single player are much better than the multiplayer. They're just a bit crisper, but they're still fantastic online. It has the same problem as it always had, where if you're going for really long distance shots, say 600 meters, the draw distance doesn't cover the 600 meters in game, so you just have to look for the really detailed character model amongst a field of brown and green flat surface. But that isn't an issue, because the bullet drop is still there. You still have to get your shots in as accurate as possible and make them count. Because of course, if you fire a shot and you miss, they'll hear the crack and know there's a sniper shooting, and they'll run off. So I'm glad the maps are nice and big and allow the bullet drop to actually work. They've introduced a new game mode, of course. I believe it's called Operations, which is huge. It's a fantastic, really, really big battle sim. It's split up into sections, so you've got to capture an area and then you can move on if you're attacking, or you have to defend a section, and if you fail to defend a section you get pushed back. So it works very much like what you'd imagine World War One, World War Two, and possibly Modern Wars. I don't know anything about Modern War though. So you're pushing back your enemy as fast as possible to try and cover as much ground, or you're trying to defend to stop the progression of the enemy. And I really, really like that game mode. It's a great game mode, and that is one that makes a lot of sense for a World War One game, but one that you wouldn't think to add. So I'm glad they thought that far ahead and decided to put that game mode into it. Again, with it being Battlefield 1 or a Battlefield game, there is destruction. The destruction is fantastic, especially if you've had the joyous experience of piloting an airship and dropping the big bomb on top of a house. It's a really satisfying feeling to drop the bomb and watch the house obliterate. So the destruction's all there, and I really, really like it. They've done a fantastic job in improving upon the already really, really good destruction. I still believe it uses Frostbite. Yes, it does. It uses Frostbite engine, which has been used since, I believe, Bad Company 1. But don't quote me on that. Bad Company 1 is the first time I remember seeing destruction as it is, although it was a much cruder form. So it has come a long way, and this is a definite good example. It's definitely a good example of how the Frostbite engine, how far the Frostbite engine has come. It's a fantastic multiplayer game to play with friends. You can get some strategy going, which I like. There's a nice choice of vehicles to use. They've gone for the period style ones with the bike and the sidecar, the old style looking bike and sidecar. The tanks are really cool. The introduction of the behemoth vehicles like trains, the boats, and the blimp. Although that mechanic needs to be nerfed a little tiny bit in operations, because the blimp will come in, and on a certain map you can't defend against the blimp properly unless they've pushed you back twice, I believe, which is when the ground-to-air guns become available. And they come in at every round after the first, which is a little annoying, but they're awesome to fight against, and it adds that little bit more of it adds a little bit more tension, because you're now aware of either the giant balloon of death above your head, the train of death going backwards and forwards, or the overpowered boat that just destroys everything and is really hard to destroy. But if you destroy it, it has the sound of the megalodon embedded in the audio. So when you destroy it, it sounds like a dying dinosaur. But with all that said and done, with the good points and the bad points, the good points, bad points, good points being the awesome multiplayer, great graphics, vehicles, things like that, and the fun story mode. Bad points being the short story mode, lack of hardcore, lack of gun variety. The game is well balanced and is well built. I've not run into many problems that have made me hate the game, but it's still relatively new, and I'm sure people have run into certain problems which has ruined the game for them. So if you're one of those people, let me know down below what your good points are, what your bad points are, and whether there are any features in the game, or if there's anything in the game that has ruined it for you, gameplay wise, or anything like that. I don't want people to ruin the story mode for others, so let's try and keep spoilers down and away, because nobody likes spoilers. But anyway, this was my very, very messy review of Battlefield 1. I'm not a game reviewer. I can't review games very well, and I can only give you my opinion, and try and voice it as best I can. But I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope this has been relaxing for you. I've tried to incorporate some tapping sounds, because, you know, they're just a nice little background thing. Yeah. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought. asleep, then sleep tight and sweet dreams. I will see you all very soon.